Oh, no,
There you go. There it is.
maybe I just had it up too long and it didn't.
Who knows? Yeah, I think probably what you want to always do is just wait until everybody is and start the process.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Levin, would you like to introduce Mr. Ortmeyer?
Sure. Everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I'll go mute.
Hi, Dana. This is Rick Ortmeyer. Rick is a former board member who also happens to be an architect and works for Bostwick Design. He has 21 years of architecture experience, including planning, programming, or design for over 50 library projects in 12 states. That's pretty impressive. And the reason why he's joining us today is because we would like to hire him for the visioning portion of the Noble Library renovation. So Rick, you want to take it away?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you all again for your service, and thank you, Nancy, for making me much younger than I am. But at Nancy's request, she asked if I would just make a brief introduction. And so because I'm an architect, I couldn't help pulling a brief presentation together. I timed it. It is no more than 6 minutes. So I know you have a full agenda. So if you don't mind, I'll share screen and I'll just touch base briefly on a few things.
Sure. Deb, did you allow him to share screen?
It appears that way.
Yep.
So are you seeing the cover presentation?
Yes.
And the aerial? Okay. So just 3 quick points. I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are, just so you know about our firm, touch on our library experience briefly, and then talk about the planning process as it's been proposed, and then any questions you might have. So first, who are we? So we are designers. This is our vision. We are designers first and foremost, but the kinds of work we do, we recognize leaves our clients with remarkable experiences, which really motivates us. And we are also really gratified by the partnerships that we get to partake in, both teams and clients that we work with. We do architecture, we do interior design, we do master planning, and because architecture projects, by the time you get through construction, have hundreds of people involved, we also recognized that leading teams is a facility that we have that we started also doing for other projects for which we're not the architect. And we apply this to libraries with health and wellness, higher education, and corporate work. We are based in Cleveland. We have an office in Erie, Pennsylvania, and Pittsburgh, which supports our eastward expansion. We have an office in Miami, Florida, which is an outlier, except for that it was directly related to an opportunity with the Cleveland Clinic, for whom we committed to opening an office to support a large project in Weston, Florida. So talk a little bit about our library experience. And this is both collectively here and my personal experience prior to joining Bostwick, a total of nearly 70 library projects of all kinds: renovations, planning, master plans, and ground up buildings. 42 since joining Bostwick in Cleveland. 20 of those were related to historic or Carnegie libraries, and we know the Noble branch is a beautiful historic Walker and Weeks building. And I have been doing library work for 26 years and also 12 states across the Midwest.
You have to update your LinkedIn, Rick.
Yeah, oh, you know what? That's a good point. I don't update that often enough. So thanks for pointing it out.
That's why I made you so young. Okay.
Yeah. So just a couple of examples of regional work that we've done. You may or may not be familiar with. This is the Cleveland Public Library Rice Branch at 116th and Shaker Boulevard. We also, that was about 2009, right when Felton Thomas arrived. This is a project that opened a couple of years ago in Toledo, just east of downtown, the Mott Branch, which they requested a signature building, which also occupied a park space in the city of Toledo. We've enjoyed a long working relationship with Cleveland Public, including a number of renovations to their existing main library downtown, include Tech Central, as well as the Digital Public Library and their digitization lab. And we also revamped the front door experience as you enter the Lewis Stokes wing, as well as turned the historic centerpiece of the old building, Brett Hall, into a gallery space and new lighting for events. For Cuyahoga County Public Library, we did the master plan, and then we also designed the Garfield Heights branch, which includes a robust teen center, and that green color you see through the windows is a recording studio and green screen, slightly larger than the one that's in the HKIC. And two projects that are as yet unbuilt, we're doing another project, another branch for the Cleveland Public Library. This is the Woodland branch, which is right near Woodland and 55th Street, just east of that intersection, which also includes, we're renovating the existing building as their new central distribution facility. And then a project that is currently under construction is the main library in Youngstown, which has a few similarities to Noble. It's a different scale, but it's a historic original 1908 building with a 90s expansion. And they wanted to expand it to include meeting space and have a very forward-looking expansion. But we're also grateful to revamp and revitalize the historic interior space, as well as add new children's. And they also were committed to a culinary literacy center, which is pretty cool. And I think that's something you're contemplating as part of the Coventry branch. So what we outlined as a process for Noble, first and foremost, we have to get on the same page. We recognize that the library and the library staff and the community has been thinking about opportunities for years, and we need to make sure we listen and get on the same page at the outset, understand what the real goals are of the community. Then we move into a phase where we call what I like to think of as creating an ideal program. So what, if Noble didn't exist, what would we put there for library services? And this is going to build on all the great work that's been done recently in the surveys you've done to turn this building into something that the limitations of this space have not allowed it to be. And we can dream a little bit about even the location and the arrangement of those spaces and think about what does it need to be? Where do they need to be in relation to each other? And that tees us up to then go into planning option workshops where we can literally play with these program pieces and align them in the way we want and see how close we can get to that ideal over the existing building, including an expansion. Then we will work with our cost estimator to understand what the fiscal implications. There's been some groundwork done on the value it would take to renovate the adjacent church, but we would do specifically for the options that might be viable coming out of the planning session. We will certainly be working with you to gain community input and build on the workshops you've already done with the community. Dovetail those in, and Nancy will work with your team to understand when the appropriate moment is. We've kind of plugged it in a certain period of time, so we have something to share, but we can talk about when the appropriate moment is. And then last, we have to wrap it up and create some excitement, some formality around what has been proposed. We've included renderings, which can generate some excitement, and those can land on either there'll be a new chapter in the page that you've already started on your website, or we're very familiar with understanding the collateral that we produce and how it will inform the story and the stories that you share with your community. So that was a quick overview. I will stop share. I can certainly share again if there's something worth going back to, but hopefully that answers maybe a few questions about who we are and what we intend to do, but any dialogue I'd be happy to engage in. And I also, you already know Julie, I assume, but I'm grateful when I got the call from Julie, I don't know, about a month and a half ago, and just said, it would be interesting to think about working together. And I couldn't be more thrilled. This is exactly the kind of stuff we love to do.
Anybody have
questions?
We would propose bringing the agreement to the board at the April meeting for approval for the consulting services.
Can you get a copy of that presentation?
Sure, absolutely. I will share it. I'll just share it with Nancy, copy Julie, and I can give you a PDF and
if you could,
PowerPoint.
If you could give it to me in PowerPoint, I might steal one or two of your slides for our presentation on Wednesday night.
Sure.
And just
And
say,
I will be listening into that as well.
okay,
Thank you.
it won't be a done deal, but I'll say we're contemplating hiring you, and then I can just sort of hopefully also start to build some excitement about working with a consultant and people trusting us to really engage them deeply and really understand what they want from this branch.
Good, certainly.
And the one thing I am going to absolutely say is we do not know what will happen to the church, because I don't. I have no preconceived notion. I know what the inspector told us about life safety and accessibility. It's going to be a challenge, but I know that all of that can be overcome if we wish to, and it's going to come down to budget and design and all these other things. So I'm telling the truth when I say I don't know.
Absolutely. It's premature to make that call. We understand it's not an easy subject.
Yeah, right. Any other questions?
Rick, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you tell me from your previous work, or just give us a feel, how do you incorporate the community feedback, what we're looking for, into the design? You showed us quite a few, but tell me how you actually go about doing that.
It's a really good question. And we like to, at the outset of any project, and I would call what we're being asked to do, it's more conceptual design at this stage. So there will still be lots of opportunity to hone it later. But regardless, at the outset of a project, one of the things that we invite is what we call conditions of satisfaction, meaning what are the criteria by which we can agree we have achieved success. And because of the nature of the library and all the conversations you've already had, this process would naturally build on that. So any success factors would be in concert with the conversation you're having with your community, and in many ways drawn from those conversations. So as we proceed forward, we'll always go back to those as fundamental touchstones to say, are we actually, even every meeting, did we support these tenets of the project, these conditions for success? So that's one way that we like to keep those front of mind. When we were doing the project in Toledo, they had done a deep dive like you have with a community survey, and the community survey had 5 major points that the community told them. So every design project meeting that we had, we started with those 5 priorities from the community to make sure that we didn't forget.
Okay, sounds good. I like that.
And perhaps if we can spend a few minutes at the May meeting, the May committee meeting, we can review the survey one more time with the board and just make sure that we're carrying you along. We don't know what those 5 things or 6 things or 7 things are, but let's just confirm that you all agree with what we know, and then that'll be a good way to start. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to ask? Rick is also a Cleveland Heights resident. I did not mention that. He lives in the Coventry neighborhood. He's a frequent user of the library, and so he's also a constituent, which is always nice. And I know that at Bostwick, they have access to all sorts of wonderful professionals that will assist us as we go along. Rick, one of the things we're trying to do with all of our projects is incorporate some sort of diversity in the staffing, and we'll talk to you about that as we go. But I know that won't be a problem. We'll
understand.
And then the other obstacle we have is COVID. We'll just have to figure out, we do want to meet in person with people as much as we can, and maybe we can do that outside, or, I mean, the church will have fire safety, but it's not very accessible. So we'll have to see. It doesn't have air conditioning either. So, but it is a big room. So maybe when it's a cooler out or something, we can do something there, or just do it out in the yard.
We're hoping by the time that we've got the concept and we're doing these community, well, when we're working through the concept and we're, going out to the community for feedback, that we'll be able to do that in an outside venue. Very soon we're gonna, start giving.
I am gonna ask if the school will support us as well. Maybe we can use the gym or the bigger rooms in the school if we need to. I know Patrick, the principal, is a good partner, and I think we'll have some access there. So we'll see we don't even have a timeline yet, so we have to figure that out.
Oh, well, that was my question. Do we know, like, for a project of this magnitude, from your experience, Rick, what is the timeline?
It's something we'll establish with Nancy and her team when we get started. We aren't going to be taking this through full design, so it's going to be it could be done in say 3 to 4 months, but that's going to be completely dependent on the pace of touch points with the community and how those can be scheduled. So it can go quickly to get some results, but we also don't want to rush forward in haste and miss the important conversations that need to be part of this. But generally speaking, a concept study like this, we're sort of anticipating would take us into middle of summer. But again, that's completely customizable to meet the demands of the library.
And I think we're kind of hoping that it does take that long. That will give us a chance to get Coventry going into construction in September, and so we're gonna layer these in because we're doing more than one thing at a time.
We're gonna be busy in the next 6 months here.
Yeah, but I think that's good in a way. I mean, I would like to talk to children, talk to older. I'd like to sort of be able to segment out some of these groups. So if we can, and again, Rick and I haven't really gotten into detail because we wanted to make sure it was okay with you before we even hired him. But that may take a little longer too. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll work out fine.
And I think too, on Wednesday, if you do share some of this, Nancy, in the forum, talking about how each project, Woodland, Toledo, Youngstown, a lot of that, they're all unique library projects based on what the constituents community kind of wanted, just so they don't think, oh, it's just some fancy architectural library that's going to be built, that it's really based, that's a part of it, but it's really based on what is the needs for that community is going to be the most important, I think, to get across at the beginning.
One thing we heard loud and clear, and I don't know whether this was a reaction to some of our recent buildings, but people were like, we really want it to be warm and cozy. Well, just because it's warm and cozy doesn't mean it has to be old. So I think we can find a balance between warm and cozy and modern and convenient and efficient at the same time. So no problem, but some of your buildings are very dazzling, Rick. They're beautiful. So we don't want to scare people either.
That's a very kind compliment. But to Tyler's point, it is true, and it's the right message to send. One of my favorite quotes is a consultant I work with named Carson Block, who does technology consulting, and he said, the library's strength is that they're hyper local.
Right.
And that they really celebrate that sense of place in ways that a lot of other institutions don't get the chance to.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example of that.
There is also, just while we're segueing, we have been invited to attend a joint boards meeting on the 15th. When is it? 19th.
Next Monday, the 12th.
And I will, at that time, be mentioning an aspirational idea about closing Monte Vista, the street that runs into Noble, right where the library is, and creating a green space between the school and the library, and a bridge so the kids don't have to cross the street in the road. And Again, only aspirational. No one said yes to anything, but if that is also possible, that could also influence what we do. But that will be just the first time they're hearing about it, except for a couple of school board members. So we'll have to see if any of that will fly as well. Okay, Rick, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. This is a real honor to be sort of reconnected with the library in this way, and you know, any future conversations, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Thank
All right.
you.
Talk to you again soon. Thanks. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Rick.
Everybody. Okay.
So the last item on the planning committee was a reminder that the joint meeting with the 2 city councils and the school board is next Monday from 7 to 9. It will be a meeting hosted by the school board. So they'll be the ones that'll be admitting everyone to Zoom and leading the discussion. I think we all got emails about a week and a half ago from Dr. Kirby with the Zoom invite, and I'll try to make a note on Monday to send that to everyone again, so that way if it's buried in your email, we'll all have it handy for Monday night.
I'm just going to hold this up to your screen so you can just see what I'm going to show. I will share this on a share screen, but I don't have it electronically. But basically that circle is the area between the school and the library. And we're just suggesting that those 2 propeller blades are just like a green space along the street. Very simple, just a conceptual idea of making part of the Noble Corridor more green and a place where people might want to sit outside. Very simple. So we'll see what they say.
Okay, next for the operations committee, we have minutes from March. I don't see a Mr. Crenshaw, or that I spelled Ms. Carlisle's name wrong. Did anybody find anything else in reviewing operation minutes?
No.
Okay, the next item we have is a citizen sent a request to all of the board members asking that we consider establishing a dog park at Peace Park. Would any of the board members like to make some comments about that?
Sure, I can jump in first. So we all got this email. It was sent to me separately because my name was spelled wrong the first time it went out. So, but I did get it right when it was sent. So first of all, I just want to state to whoever's listening, or if this if the person who wrote this email is listening, that we did hear you. We're listening to you. And you brought up this issue of potentially turning the Coventry Peace Park into a dog park. Just my sort of initial reaction and, kind of thinking about it a little bit today and over the last couple of weeks, there are a couple things that bothered me about the email and sort of the certain implications that were made in there. The first was the actual claim that this person claimed to represent all dog owners in Cleveland Heights, which seemed a little hyperbolic to me and is a little bit doubtful. Also that, a lot of this information was based on conversations that were had on Nextdoor.com. Nextdoor is, doesn't represent the entire community and also is pretty segmented. You can only comment on certain things depending on which part of the community you actually live in. So like I am on Nextdoor in my neighborhood that I live in, but I didn't see anything about this. It only really came up if you live in the same neighborhood of Cleveland Heights that this person would have posted in. And then there was a mention of the Monticello Dog Park, which I happen to live like a block away from. I live just on the side of Cleveland Heights, across from Belvoir. And I go to that park all the time. I walk around that park, the North Quarry Park, South Quarry Park. And then we have our own on this side in Cleveland Heights. And I frequent the area. There are people with dogs there. They seem to get along. The person who wrote this email said that it had a bad reputation. And I'm not really sure what that means, because it seems to be like everybody's getting along well there. There doesn't seem to be any kind of higher incident rates or anything like that than there would be anywhere else. And it's a fine dog park. The email also mentioned that having a dog park there in the Coventry Peace Campus would be better than a few people throwing a football around. And I'm just wondering, like, if anybody's been to this park, like if the weather's nice at all, it's usually pretty filled with people like running around the park, having picnics in the park. Maybe a couple of people are throwing a football around, but they're playing on the playground as well. So the implication there seemed like people weren't using the park, that it might be like one or two people kind of hanging out. And that didn't seem to be true to me. As somebody who used to live right on Coventry, I used to go to that park all the time. I still go to that park a lot. And there's always a lot of people there. She also mentioned that, you know, having a dog park would allow people to mingle. That would be a positive thing. And I agree. I mean, I think it's really great. That's one of the great things about parks, is that it allows people from the community to hang out together and get to know each other, build that sense of community. But I don't think that you need a dog park for that to happen. I think the park there itself, there are already people there mingling and having a good time, getting to know each other and building that community. There was also mention that like dog waste, you know, it would definitely not be an issue. But I think that's sort of debatable. That's not necessarily so. And, you know, cause like, listen, we all know there are some dog owners who aren't great dog owners, who don't pick up after themselves, or who may just be like, may forget about it, may have had a bad day. And in that case, like, who is then responsible for cleaning up dog waste in the park? It's a good question. The email also mentioned high property taxes. Just to reiterate, a very, very tiny part of that actually goes to the library. Most of those property taxes are actually school levy based. And then just to get to some of my points, that if this is a dog park, looking at some of the research in here, then it would really be a dog park to the exclusion of everything else. That this park is not big enough to have a dog park that's kind of set aside where other people can do what they want to do. This park would be big enough just to be a dog park and then nothing else for anybody. Not everybody is comfortable around dogs. That's another thing that I think is really important to bring up. Some people have past trauma involving dogs. I myself am a dog lover. I love dogs, but I also understand that some people are not comfortable around them. And, you know, some people, when they back away and they're like, oh, don't worry, he doesn't bite, like it doesn't really matter, because we don't know what their experience is. And we want to be as inclusive as possible when we're thinking about the future of this park. There are also, as mentioned in the email, there are dog parks in the area. There are dog parks. There's a dog park in Beechwood. There's a dog park right here in South Euclid, which borders Cleveland Heights. There are places to take dogs other than that. There are also experts who point out in a few of the articles that were kind of sent around when I was looking at them, that dog parks should be away from businesses and residences. And, you know, Coventry is centrally located. It's a great place, but then like you have residences right there on Washington and Euclid Heights. You also have all the businesses that are there on Coventry. And having a dog park there, by all accounts, according to experts in the field in dog park and park planning and urban planning, say that having a dog park near residences and businesses is a pretty bad idea. There was also mention in a follow-up email that like a future mayoral candidate or somebody from the city might be behind a dog park. I think that's a great idea. If they want to do that, the city operates a few parks in Cleveland Heights. You know, Cumberland is a really big park that's very centrally located, and it's a big enough park where you could really build a nice dog park in there. Forest Hills as well. These are places that have a lot of space, that are separate from businesses, separate from residences, that I think would be really great to let your dogs out and run around on, you know, unleashed in a certain area, you know, without being imposing on the neighborhood and without kind of taking up space and excluding other people from that. Those are my thoughts. So I'll kick it over to whoever else might want to talk.
Well, I'll just follow after Max. I'll just say not everyone is a dog lover. I myself am, you know, I grew up with dogs, but I'm not a dog lover. And I think that the responsibility that we would have would be more than just putting up a fence. But also in the letter, I was a little bit offended. I don't live in the Monticello area or neighborhood, but I feel like we all know what this person was trying to say by calling that neighborhood dangerous. Like, as a Black person, to me, I was offended because I think calling predominantly Black neighborhoods dangerous is a racist trope. And so I was offended. And I'll just also say that serving on this board has really, it appears, you know, we're a city that says like all are welcome. You know, that is our slogan. We pride ourselves on our diversity, but there is a lot of covert racism here, and it's really disheartening. You know, and like I said, you know, in reading that and them saying that the Monticello neighborhood is dangerous, I was offended as a Black person who lives in Cleveland Heights.
Thanks, Gabe. And before it goes on, I just want to say that I completely back up what Gabe is saying. When I tell people that I live in this neighborhood, people are like, oh, really? Interesting. And there's definitely like the Noble neighborhood, the north part of the city, like Monticello, like this has this bad reputation. It's like, come and spend some time here. And I really, you know, and it's very, I mean, to me, and this is my opinion, and I believe it's shared by Gabe, seems pretty obvious that this does tend towards racist dog whistling, whether intended or not.
So I'll go next. I concur with everything Max and Gabe said. A couple other things is in the request for consideration, which we really appreciate getting, and we did speak about this via email and some other conversations. There was a note in there saying that Cleveland Heights, University Heights residents pay the board's salaries. I don't have a salary from the CHUH library. If the other folks do, then they have a sweet deal because I do not. All of us put our name in the hat for this position because we care about the library system and the community. And I have 2 dogs in Cleveland Heights who I love. I take on walks all the time. And, you know, when I went by the Coventry Peace Park this weekend, there were so many people enjoying the nice weather that the idea of fencing it off for people who only had dogs just seemed unfair to the community as a whole and kind of takes away from that vibrancy of that part of Coventry. So for me, at least at this particular location that the request was asking us to consider, I don't think a dog park would be the best for that location.
I'm going to be really brief because everyone has said what I have already felt or voiced previously, but just want to add that there's a statement in the letter that said, hopefully you won't ignore us this time. And we take every request that we receive into consideration. We talk about it in our meetings, in our committee meetings. And so we are always listening. A lot of us are on Nextdoor and following stuff there. Our emails are open, and that's part of our role is to listen to the community. That's all I'm going to add.
Go ahead.
Vikas, you can go. I can go after you. Go ahead.
Okay, I was saying I don't really have anything to add at all. I mean, I fully behind the things that have already been said. You know, I agree that I don't think it's a good idea for the Peace Park to become a dog park. That's all. Go ahead, Dana.
Thank you. I will, of course, add something. Max, we thank you for running down the bullets of, you know, how many of us feel. Maybe we don't agree on all those points, but it is significant enough that those many issues that we have with this person's request are valid. Gabe, thank you for bringing to attention what we probably all felt or gleaned from that request, which was there was definitely an undertone of racial bias and negative speaking in reference to the neighborhood. And we would only ask that if people want to do this in the future, that you be a little more blatant with it, because we will address it. You know, we really don't have time for that. We are here to serve the constituents of Cleveland Heights, University Heights, and to further this library system. We have taken on the Coventry Peace Park because we saw a need that fit us and that fit the city. We were definitely in agreement from what I get from most of my board members is that Annette sent us a wonderful article that talked about maintaining public spaces, you know, for socializing, etc. And as the pandemic has showed us, which is the angle I was going to come from this evening, we need those. We certainly don't hope there'll be a pandemic in our generation again or in the near future, but we do think that this was a good investment that we didn't even foresee, because Deborah pointed out why we originally took on this project, but look what it has served, you know, as we move forward 2 or 3 years from when we first took on this project. Cleveland Heights, University Heights has a certain reputation, and it is our intent to continue many of the things that our library stands for, that our art system, we want to be supportive of that, and that we will definitely right now stand to continue to preserve Coventry as a peace park and not as a pet park. But we by all means would be open to supporting that elsewhere. If any of us want to lend our hand, we would let the person that submitted this know that some of us are interested in that and would be happy to join you as you look for elsewhere.
And I'd just like to put a bow on it by saying a couple things. One, I use the Quarry Road Dog Park. I've gone there with my dogs. I have 2 dogs whom I love desperately and want them to be able to run around. It's definitely an amenity that is, I think, more for people than for the dogs. One of my dogs just sits by my side and watches it all go by. The other one goes and mixes it up with the other animals. But I don't think dogs need socialization; they need exercise. The other thing is that we actually have plans for that park. That has not been mentioned yet today. That we are working on a plan to replace the playground, to add a walking path, to build a stage for our Shakespeare and our other open mics from Lake Erie Inc. and other performing artists that might come through. It's not that the land is lying fallow. It is very well used in the summer, in the winter, for sledding. And so the idea that it was just sitting there waiting to have someone else populated is not exactly true. And in fact, Wednesday is our Library Day of Giving, and we hope that people will start helping us with small donations to go toward renovating the playground, which has been there, was built in 1993 by the PTA at Coventry School. It's a community thing that everyone has their heart in, and we're going to improve it. So we do have plans, and as soon as we have something we can share, we will definitely do that. And I hope that will be within the next year. So it's not lying fallow. And the library spends about $30,000 a year mowing, maintaining. We bought pet pickup stations for the park. We bought new garbage cans. We empty those garbage cans. So unlike other city parks, we allow people to walk through the park with their dogs. As long as they maintain them on leashes, we don't have a lot of rules. So we feel like we have more open access for anyone to use the park in any way, and keeping it flexible is a good thing. So, okay, so let's just say that we have answered the request from the person who wrote to us, and we put that one to bed, I think.
Before we move on to the next item in operations, I just realized that I skipped over the 2020 strategic planning update. I'm not going to let Ms. Deniro-Ackroyd get away without telling you what her plans are for that. So Kim, can you go back and tell the board what's up with that?
Absolutely. And then I actually have a second thing. I texted Nancy to say that I also have sort of an update and an inquiry about another potential amendment to the service and administration policy. But first, very briefly, now that we have wrapped up our 2020 evaluation process, part of that process includes looking at the goal completions that all the staff members did. So now that we have those, Lori Murata ran a report for me on goals that were accomplished during 2020. Those included strategic plan goals. I'm going to take that report and give to you an accomplishment list of our strategic plan for 2020, such as it is, based on what we were able to do, despite the fact that we only had 11 weeks of normal operation in 2020. So that will be coming. You should have it at the April 19th board meeting. I'm sorry I don't have it for you tonight to take a preliminary look at it, but we've been hopping here, so with lots of projects. So that's coming in 2 weeks. And if I can, Nancy, should I just go ahead and talk about the, I was going to talk about the loaning tablets.
Sure.
Okay. We are excited to report that we are about to launch a new item type. We're going to be loaning out tablets. We're going to start it here at Lee Road. And the reason I bring this to you tonight is because it is a new item for us, we don't have it in our table of fines, fees, our loan policies. That's part of the service and administration policies that you all approve every year. So there's been a little bit of talk about that, about where would that fall for any potential fines. And it has been suggested by a couple staff members that we don't put overdue fines on those. Again, we identified having fees and fines as a barrier to access years ago. We've been 95% fine free since January of 2018. We have a few things that still do incur fines. And I'm going to pop over, I'm going to look at the table. Hotspots still have a fine, and video games. I think by the end of this year, we're going to suggest that we get rid of those as well, particularly because if somebody has a hotspot and they don't return it, it gets turned off. So the usability no longer is there. Yes.
Oh, I believe that's also going to be true of the tablet, that we will turn off the
the
Wi-Fi accessibility on the tablet.
Right. I was looking at, we have a draft of a Q&A page for the loaning tablets. So there's really no incentive. If someone loses one, they do have to pay replacement costs. We're working on that. But so my ask, I guess my ask will have to be officially in 2 weeks. But I want to put it on your radar. We'd like to ask to have permission for the tablets to be fine-free. Does anybody see any objection to that?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. The service and administration policies don't get reviewed until the fall.
Yeah.
So it will show up there, but just in anticipation of getting these out sooner, without a vote, we're just looking for consensus.
All right. If you're all good with that, and then we don't have to make a fine and then perhaps take it away in a few months. We'll just launch it as is. Okay. All right. Those are the two things I had tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are talking about service and administration policies, and we do have a large addition that we'd like to add as an appendix. We do have a section that talks about trying to make the library as accessible as possible. And it was brought to our attention by the county prosecutor that in keeping with the Americans with Disabilities Act, it would be wise if we had a policy that included naming a person who was responsible for answering any complaints. And that will be me, because I have purview over facilities as well as the budget and policy. So we during COVID did a lot of touch-free access to the building and to other areas. We're putting in touch-free doors on a number of the bathrooms. We do try very hard to make everything accessible at the library, including the website. And we want to be a standard bearer. We want to do our best. So we think having this policy will help us accomplish that. So it's pretty much a boilerplate thing. I did have the county prosecutor look at it. So it meets legal muster. And we will be asking you to approve it at the board meeting. Any questions about any of that? Okay. We do more than just physical handicap accessibility. We are the deaf services library, the only one in the county. We do offer, we just had offered translation for the Lake Erie Inc. Comic-Con. We do a lot of things. So we have all sorts of software for people to use in the library on computers. If you look at our website, on the right-hand side, there's a little icon that you can click that shows you all the accessibility things you can use on our website. And we are actually going through and tagging all the photos now. So I think our website will be 100% accessible. We want to be a standard bearer. So that's the end of that. Deb, do you have the easement?
The next item is we received an easement document from Dominion Gas that they would like to get an easement to do some work on our property at the parking lot behind the building. Technically, when this parcel was created, there are 2 parcels. The parking lot is actually 4 parcels. 2 of them have a Delwood address and 2 of them have an Ormond address. It's almost like it's 4 rectangles that make up our back parking lot. And Dominion is asking to do some work on the Ormond side. I still haven't gotten clarification if it's all underground or maybe a box or something, but they are offering $20,000 for the right to do that. So we'd like to put that on for the board to approve on the meeting on the 19th. And I will still work on getting more clarification on what exactly they will be doing there, but it's hard not to take $20,000 if they're going to dig up the tree lawn or something. I don't think any of the easements we have on any of the other buildings don't encourage onto our parking lot. It's usually just in the tree lawn where all the lines are in that. So does anyone have any questions about that?
Deb, the only thing that I worry about are the trees. So if we can avoid the trees that are already planted, that'd be good.
Right. Next item is Personnel Committee minutes from March. Anybody spot any corrections that are needed in those? Ms. Levin has asked for an executive session to discuss personnel. I will cease the recording and cease the YouTube video after we have the motion. Kim?
Debbie, I think you missed the retirement resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. We will have a retirement resolution presented on the agenda to approve. We have it written up and presented it to my deputy on the day on her last day here, and we'll officially put that on there on Monday night. And I believe she'll even be listening in on the meeting with her mother and some family and children from out of state. So we're looking forward to being able to share that.
Great.
I don't think I've missed anything else. Anybody spot anything? Do we have a motion and a second to go into executive session?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second? Ms. Crenshaw?
Yes.
Ms. Llewellyn? Is she stepped away? Mr. Gerbach?
Yes.
Ms. Iwamoto?
Yes.
Mr. Tarakia?
Yes.
Mr. McTighe, I don't have you on here.
Yes.
Okay, I will stop.
Deb, I was on mute. I'm sorry, I couldn't get it off.
Okay, very good. I will stop the meeting.